Welcome to Confessing the Blues, a podcast about the blues music that matters to dancers. It's October 15th, 2009, and this is episode number 3. I'm Keith Big Papa Shapiro from Austin, Texas.
And I'm Jonathan Pecho from Dallas, Texas.
And we have a fantastic show lined up for you this month. We've got some new music from eMusic. We have a little feature on jump blues and its appropriateness for blues dancing. We have a feature on Austin local blues label Dial Tone Records. And we have some great international feedback. But first, let's recap a couple of events that have happened in the last month.
All right. First of all, let's talk about Knoxville Lindy Exchange. I DJ'd there about a month ago. I played tunes for both the swing and blues dancers. They're in different rooms through the evening. I had a great time. I got to spend some time talking to DJs and organizers that I really don't know very well. As much as I've lived in Texas and DJ'd in Texas, I haven't really traveled throughout most of the Southeast. So I got to spend some time chatting with people like Rob Moreland and Mike Gamble and other folks. I had a great weekend. I put some great music out there for folks. A more unique opportunity I had with the weekend was to run a workshop for local DJs in Knoxville. I sat and broke down different elements of music, different elements of technique, and discussed how to apply them in the process of DJing. This was a really unique challenge for me. When the opportunity came up, I really sat down and had to sit and break down the different things that I do when I sit and play music. Keith says I'm way too cerebral about this sometimes.
Not quite as cerebral as the folks in Boston. I'm not sure if you can out-cerebral people at MIT.
No.
But, you give them a run for their money.
I'm maybe, but yes, I am not creating sine waves out of my music, graphically, at least. But I do think about a lot of different things while I'm trying to put together my sets and while I'm actively working to create music. The challenge came in breaking this down in such a way as to discuss it and discuss the different things to listen to in music. I did focus on this primarily from the standpoint of DJing for swing dancers, but there's a lot that still applies. I mean, just paying attention to tempo, paying attention to the different sounds in music, the different hooks that can bring you from one song to another, things like that. I had a great time doing all of this. I found it a great challenge. So,
and if you're interested in having Jonathan come out to your scene and have a chat with your DJs, you can go to www.confessingtheblues. There's a little link at the top that says contact us, and send Jonathan an email, and he'll be happy to discuss how to get out to wherever you happen to be.
I'm very humble in my opinions.
Which is why we do a podcast.
Right.
I had an opportunity also to travel last month. I went out to, or I guess it was this month, had an opportunity to go out to Blues Blaze, which is New York City. And this is their first big blues event. I had a great time. I heard a lot of great music from some pretty decent DJs. So thank you guys, DJs, for playing great music. Thank you, organizers, Joy and Heather, for bringing me out to DJ. And hopefully we can do it again sometime. That pretty much wraps up our events that we went to. Let's talk about some stuff that's coming up in the near future. So get your checkbooks out and fire up your flight search tool, because here we go. First up, Gypsy House Party, October 23rd to 25th in Dallas, Texas. www.gypsyhouseparty.com.
Go find information there. It's going to be an awesome weekend with the DJs coming in from out of town. We've already talked about this a couple of times. Try to make it if you can. They're closing up registration fairly shortly, so hit it as soon as you get the show. Coming up October 30th to November 1st in Minneapolis is North Star Blues. Go ahead and check that out at www.northstarblues.com.
Of course, Emerald City Blues Festival, the one and only, November 6th through the 8th up in Seattle, Washington. EmeraldCityBlues.com. Stellar lineup. Check the website. Tickets are going quick, so register for that now.
The next event we got coming up is Austin Lindy Exchange from November 20th to 22nd. Go to www.austinlindyexchange.org for information on that. I'll be DJing in the Blues Room throughout the weekend. I know that Rained's going to be in from DC to go ahead and take over the main room. We've got a slew of other DJs. It's going to be a great weekend. Also coming up in Austin, January 15th to 17th, is Lone Star Championships. Why do we mention that for you guys? They have competitions there for blues and swing dancers. Sign up if you're interested in coming in and competing.
Yep. Speaking of blues competitions, and also in the ATX, so y'all keep your eye out for plane tickets to Austin. April 16th through the 18th, 2010. Blue Shout.
Shout.
Yep. Blueshout.com. I think it's still a splash page.
Shout.
So we're working on it. More details to follow in coming months. Also wanted to make a mention of a new venue that opened up, I believe they're weekly in Seattle. So props to new weekly venues. So that's Blues at the Abbey, and that's www.bluesattheabbey.com. They are opening this month. If you are interested in having your event listed in our promo, please give us an email at info@confessingtheblues.com, or give us a call and leave us a voice message at 60-THE-BLUES. That's 608-432-5837. We do love to hear from you guys, so please get a hold of us.
Send us more feedback, even if you just want to shout at us and tell us we're knuckleheads.
Or that you love it, because
we accept love too.
At least one of you, besides my wife, has got to love what we're doing. Okay, let's move on and get to some music. We've got a couple of tracks for you new this month. All of these tracks are available on eMusic. If you've been listening to the show, you know that both Jonathan and I are huge fans of eMusic, and the amount of stuff they keep adding every month is just incredible.
It's scary. I can't keep track of it.
Yep. So I'm going to start off with a track by a guy named Joe Morris, and you may not have heard of Joe Morris, but you have definitely heard Joe Morris. He started as a jazz trumpeter working with Buddy Rich and Lionel Hampton. He left Lionel Hampton in 1946 and started his own orchestra. One of his first credited recordings as a band leader was behind Wynonie Harris in Drinkin' Wine Spodioti, and you have probably heard that song. In the 50s, his band served as the unofficial house band for Atlantic Records. So you hear Joe and his band on a number of really famous recordings, including behind Lowell Fulson and Ray Charles. The track that I've got for you is called Low Down Baby, and it comes from pretty early in his career.
Not quite the show off Wynton Marsalis is on the horn at the beginning.
No, but extremely solid, and one hell of a musician. So really, really love that track.
All right. The next song I'm going to talk about is a 2004 release from Pinetop Perkins. He did a collaborative album called Ladies Man, which is him doing duets with a whole slew of different artists, including Susan Tedeschi. The one I'm going to focus on is Odetta. Pinetop Perkins, for those of you that don't know, is, let's see, he's 98,
I think
96, I think 96 years old, I think, if my math is good. He started off playing guitar in Mississippi. But according to the wiki on him, he got into a fight with a choir girl in Arkansas.
Wait, hold on. Did you say a choir girl?
Choir girl.
Oh my.
Yeah, man, they make him rough in Arkansas, I guess.
Apparently.
But so he couldn't keep playing guitar, so he switched to the piano, and to this day still plays. The guy is amazing. He's played with everybody, and we're lucky. He actually lives here in Austin now, so you can go and actually see him out on 6th Street at the club watching people still. I wonder if he's indestructible. I mean, in 2004 he was driving his car and his car got hit by a train. Yeah, he was fine. He was fine. Yeah, well, at least he wasn't seriously hurt, but yeah, he just sort of, the guy might be indestructible. So the artist who worked with him is somebody that's described as an icon in folk music, and specifically American folk music. Odetta was credited by Martin Luther King as the queen of American folk music. I mean, she has been a figure in was a figure in civil rights through her life. She passed away this last December. Most of her work is in the folk genre, but she also did a number of blues tunes. In this case, the tune with Pine Top is very much that. The song that I've chosen is Trouble in Mind.
Trouble in mind, I'm blue. You know I won't be blue always. Oh, you know the sun's gonna shine in my body someday. I'm going down.
Okay, that was two fantastic artists late in their careers. Pine Top's career is still going. Just putting something out there that sounds just fantastically rich. I love most of that album. I use for dancers when I can. That song, just gets me. I love it.
Awesome. So, like I mentioned, Pine Top does live here in Austin. So I'm going to stick with the Texas thing for just a little bit longer. My next track is from Mercy D. Walton, who was born in Waco. He did move to California, fairly early on in his life, and he had a little bit of success out there, including touring with the jump band Big J McNeely and his act. But Mercy D. Walton's claim to fame is a national hit that he had on Specialty Records, which is now a blues standard, and that song is One Room Country Shack.
Country little shack, sitting here 1,000 miles from nowhere, in this one room country little shack. Lord, my only worthy procession is a raggedy old 11-foot cotton sack.
So, yeah, that's a great track and definitely one that I've heard from other artists before. So definitely check that out. There are quite a few tracks on that album that are really, really great, really danceable. So definitely make sure to look that up.
Yeah, I love the piano backing for that. It just greases the wheels for the whole tune. I mean, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, that was Mercy D on the piano.
Yeah, fantastic. Last artist we're going to mention here is Pee Wee Russell. Pee Wee Russell is another one of those guys focused on traditional jazz. He played with just an onslaught of artists: Frankie Trumbauer, Big Spiderback, Bobby Hackett, Eddie Condon, Ornette Coleman, Muggsy Spanier. I mean, guys who just ranged all the way through the different sounds of jazz over the years. This particular song is another one that we've heard a few times, and you'll hear other versions of it, called "Squeeze Me." Yeah, and if you couldn't guess on that, I mean, Pee Wee's the guy playing clarinet there. He played sax early in his career, but he focused on clarinet through most of his later years. As I've said, but we talked about this a little bit, the power of what traditional jazz can bring to blues is amazing.
And it's something that I mean, just even being out in New York, the amount of songs that you're hearing out there from jazz has really gone up pretty quickly in the last year or so, from almost nothing to being all over the place. So if you are out there and you are a DJ and you are not yet familiar with it, start listening to it, because that's where things are going. I know for me that I tend to focus more on Chicago and more on jump personally, but I find that I'm definitely having to get more into the trad jazz side of things. So I'm really excited about it because it's some really fantastic music in there.
Right. And you'll see more of this as time goes on. I mean, the music's fantastic. You hear versions of these songs, not even just within this era. I mean, if you go look up Squeeze Me on eMusic, you're going to find, like, I think there was like 11 or 12 pages of different of that, just that title. Some of it obviously having nothing to do with what we're talking about, but there's versions by every traditional jazz and blues artist under the sun.
I remember Louis Armstrong was on there. Bessie Smith was on there.
Yeah.
Just about everybody.
You're going to find versions of different length, of different quality. You're going to find versions of different just genre sound. I mean, there's going to be guys who are going to be playing something that's very very jazzy like that. You're going to find I've seen acoustic blues guys do versions of that. Mm-hmm. As you get towards more modern recordings, obviously, you will see focuses on different things. But almost all the songs that we played in that set are traditional songs. I mean, they've been hanging around for 60, 70, 80, 100 years.
Right. These are all standards. And something that you'll find is we do try to feature very strong versions of all of these songs. You know, obviously a standard, pretty much everyone has recorded it. You're going to find some songs that are just not as strong, whether that be because of recording quality or just in terms of for dancing, the style is not what we're looking for. But what you can do is you can start from these versions, even if these aren't necessarily your cup of tea. You can start from these versions, search for these songs, and through looking up these songs, you will find artists that you've never heard of, and you'll find versions of songs that you've not been aware of. For example, you know, Duke Ellington's Black and Tan Fantasy, he's probably recorded, 6 dozen versions of just that song, just Duke Ellington. So if you don't like one, chances are you'll find another one that you do like.
That's not even getting to, Lincoln Center doing Ellington's
right
arrangements and so on, which are out of this world.
Absolutely. So hopefully we're giving you some good ideas of not just artists that you can look up, but also songs that you can go look up so that you can explore music a little bit more freeform than just, clicking download on the songs that we play for you. Now, not all of the songs and all of the artists that we are going to dig up for you are going to be, your big names, your BB Kings or your Joe Turners. One of the things that we like to do is really pay attention to smaller labels and local artists.
Yeah, and around here and around Dallas, that's really not that hard. I mean, Austin is the live music capital of the world. Dallas, to this day, still has a pretty solid blues scene.
So one of the labels that I wanted to talk about is actually a label that's local to Austin. I had the opportunity to sit down with Eddie Stout, who runs Dial Tone Records. The first time I heard about Dial Tone, I was actually driving in the car during the first Austin Blues Party. I was driving some friends to the airport and just listening to the radio and heard just some absolutely phenomenal blues. So I kind of put it aside and didn't really think about it for a little while. But I heard it again on the radio, and so I gave the owner a call, and we sat down and we talked. Dial Tone is the only black blues label in Texas. It's been around for 11 years. They've got 20 releases, and they're doing something today that you're not hearing from other modern Texas blues bands, and that's really focusing on bluesmen from Texas who aren't really touring and aren't really playing. We're finding guys on the street corner or, playing at their church bands and bringing them back and getting them in a studio, which is something that's really important. Eddie was kind enough to give me a couple of CDs and allow me to play some music for you guys so you could hear really what he's doing. And I think it's a fantastic mission. I'm really interested in it. And I wanted to get that out for you guys. So the first artist I want to feature is Earl Gilliam. And he started playing on the street in New Waverly, Texas for nickels and dimes. Later on, he moved to Houston where he played with guys like Albert Collins and Gatemouth Brown. Here he is on the CD, Texas Doghouse Blues. And the song is called My First Name is Earl.
Well, my first name is Earl, but my second name I've never been told. Well, never been told. I've been loving nice-looking women ever since I was 12 years old. Well, my father...
Love me some ham and bee.
Absolutely.
Love me some ham and bee organ. I don't know if that's name and bee, but that's amazing.
Great organ sound, and one of those instruments that really, when you find it and when it works really well. The next guy I want to feature was born in a small town just south of Fort Worth. He bought his first guitar from the pawn shop at the age of 16. He did take a break from playing for a while because he stopped to raise his 11 children.
That'll keep you busy.
Well, right. I mean, I've only got 2, and that keeps me pretty busy too. This is Ray Reid. It's off the album Where the Trinity Runs Free, Trinity River, I'm guessing. The song is Key to the Highway, which is one of those songs that hopefully you've heard before, but he has a really great take on it, so check it out.
I got the key to the highway, bound down all to go. I'm gonna leave here running, walking it more too slow. When the moon keeps over the mountain, I'll be on my way. I'm gonna roam the highway until the break of day.
So this guy is currently playing weekly at a church in Fort Worth. He's not playing at clubs. He's playing at the Rise and Shine Holiness Church in Fort Worth, Texas. The work that Eddie's doing, bringing these guys out and getting them on tape is fantastic. On that recording, playing in the harp, if you're listening on headphones in stereo, you got, in one ear, you got the harp of Hash Brown from Dallas. Hash Brown was a staple, is a staple in the Dallas blues dance scene. He played weekly at the
Bone, at the Jam at the Bone, and he still plays around Dallas fairly regularly.
He played at I think all 3 of the Red, White, and Blues events. So he's just been around for a long time, and
he's freaking awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. He's definitely a harmonica great. So we're talking about guys who where are you going to find these guys? You're not going to find. They're not touring. They're raising their kids. They're at home. They're at church. This is where your local labels are going to really be helpful, where you're going to find these people that are fantastic. The next song we want to feature is a song by Bobby Rush.
Yeah, and Bobby Rush is an interesting figure. His musical influence is pretty wide ranged. He dabbles in soul, he dabbles in funk, he dabbles in rap, and he dabbles in blues, including he's got an acoustic album called Raw that's on eMusic that received award nominations. The guy is extremely talented. This is off of an album titled Texas Harmonica Rumble, and the title of the song is High Tempter.
My baby give me a high temperature. My baby give me a high temperature. My baby give me a high temperature. She gave me a high temperature. She got me hot and wanna leave, but I can't stand to see her go. Every time she walks, shake like a leaf shaking on a tree. Every time she walks.
Yeah, that, like Keith actually mentioned right before we faded that out. It just chills out in that groove through the whole song. It's just really rich. Bobby Rush is a guy, you can find his stuff on eMusic. He like I said, he won the Best Male Soul Blues Artist at the Blues Music Awards. He won Best Acoustic Album for Raw. He's been involved in every musical genre within what we might construe as R&B in the very literal definition of R&B. I mean,
roots music, yeah.
I mean, yeah, anything. He's had his fingers in it.
Yep, that was off one of the older albums. The latest release from Dial Tone is called Texas Fireline. It's by Little Joe Washington. Now, from the liner notes, it says that Houston, Texas in the 50s was the best place to be a blues man. And Little Joe cut his teeth playing alongside Albert Collins, Joe Hughes, Gatemouth Brown, and Roscoe Gordon. In the 60s, he moved on to the Border Town circuit and also went to California to record for Donna and Federal Records. He never stopped making music, but in the 70s, Little Joe hit on some hard times. He pawned his things and became homeless. Okay, so we're talking, this is the quintessential blues man. These days, thankfully, he's got steady gigs and a roof over his head. This album is not available on eMusic. You're only going to be able to get it from Dial Tone directly. So what I want you guys to do is we're gonna play the full track. I have permission from Eddie to go on and let you guys hear the full track. Somebody tell me. What I want you guys to do, go to the Dial Tone Records website. Because these artists are not well known, you're not going to find any information on them outside the liner notes. Call him up, write him an email, buy these CDs directly from him. Yeah, a lot of them are on eMusic, including some of the ones that you can't get on CD anymore, but let him know that you heard about him on our show. The only way that he's going to be able to continue capturing acts like this is if he's supported. And, you know, blues of this style in America is really not that big right now. But I think we have an opportunity, being blues lovers, to really show our appreciation and help continue to get these great guys on CD.
Yes, please do it with your dollars.
So we've got in the show notes, there's a link to the Dial Tone Records is featured on eMusic. So we've got a link to the label. The link to his website is dialtonerecords.com. Give him a call. Let him know that we sent you, just so that he can appreciate that we're really trying to do our part. The track that we've got is Somebody Tell Me. It's off the latest Dial Tone Records release, Texas Fireline by Little Joe Washington. Check it out.
everybody. Get low! Get low! Get low! Get on!
So like I said, this album, Texas Fireline, is not available on eMusic. It's still fairly recent. It is the newest release in the Dial Tone Records catalog. So you are going to have to go to dialtonerecords.com and you're going to have to order the CD. Please do so. Please. I definitely want to thank Eddie Stout for, sitting down and talking to me and hooking us up with the music and with letting us play the full track. And I also want to thank Eddie for all the hard work that he's done to capture this great music. And I really do hope that he continues to do so in the future. Please help us, make that happen. It's important that we do this. So that's kind of why we're harping on this point.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you as well, because these are musicians that don't necessarily get big press other places. I mean, guys like Hash Brown have been playing around Dallas for a long time. They're really good, and they just don't get that much recognition. The other point I'd like to make is that this isn't only something that we get here in Texas. Wherever you are, there's somebody putting out blues music. Unless you are in a town of 8 people who don't know what a music instrument looks like. If you're listening to a podcast and you're one of those 8 people, I no offense, but wow. But
all 8 of you out there.
All 8 of you.
60 the Blues. Feel free to write Jonathan a nasty email.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah. Oh, 60 the Blues, or write me an email. If you find these people locally, this is who everybody needs to hear. These are artists that need support from anywhere they can get it. If it's within your state or within your town, great. If we can point people their way, great. This is who we want to recognize. Find these people. Find the little clubs they're playing at. Find the little rusty jukes that are still floating around here and there. Check these guys out. Let us know if you want us to help spread them around. We want to make sure that people see this kind of music.
info@confessingtheblues.com or 608-432-5837. Yeah, we're going to keep harping on that until you guys start sending us more emails.
we accept love, but we'll take what we can get.
And if that happens to be more music, more the better.
Yeah, that's even better.
As you may have noticed here at Confessing the Blues, we have a vast shortage of bumpers between our sections. So without further ado, jump blues.
Jump blues.
Jump blues.
If you haven't noticed, as we kind of go along through the shows, we've been breaking down different parts of, or different genres within blues itself, and one of the parts that we inevitably had to get to is jump. This is something that spawned in, well, I guess in the early 40s. You start seeing the influence of boogie woogie really start to become pervasive within blues. You got guys like the Kansas City guys like Pete Johnson and Albert Ammons, and that piano style really starting to change what blues is, and not just blues, but what big band sounds like. And you start to see bands like Lucky Millinder's start to shift around that, and you very especially start to see Lionel Hampton's band shift around that. There was an additional feature that you started to see smaller urban clubs wanting to have live music. And it's not really that fun or interesting to try to cram, a 22-piece big band onto one stage and then have to pay 22 people of that big band to have to perform and for a night, 2 nights, 3 nights, whatever, and go about their business. So you started to see a higher demand on bands like the Timpani Five. You started to see 5 and 6 person performing groups going out and putting music out there, but still putting music out for dancers. That's the important part here. Now you're still seeing a big emphasis on swing music, but again, just like with the jazz and big band artists we talked about last month, they're not just playing simply for swing dancers. They're playing for a wide range of dancers. They're playing just for dancers. So whatever style of dance they felt like putting out there in whatever song, whether it was something with a ballroom, with one of the ballroom styles in it, whether it was something that you could do a swing out to, or
even a Latin rhythm,
or blues, then they'd put it out there. They'd play it. It was not nearly as specialized as we can make it out nowadays. A feature that you'll see in a lot of jump blues artists and a lot of their music is a very significant drive in the beat. It is a very horizontal movement. It's in a lot of circumstances that still pushes you forward. Even in the slower blues numbers, it's still there. It's not as much of a drive as you would get out of like Count Basie's Boogie Woogie. I think it's a 39 tune, right. Stuff like that. But it's still there, even in the slower numbers. We wanted to play a couple of songs and give an idea of some of the artists here. These are going to be names you hear, but we wanted to give you the idea that when you're listening to jump blues artists, when you flip through blues and you see the first name we're going to talk about is Louis Jordan. You see Louis Jordan, the first thing you think of is Ain't Nobody Here But Us Chickens and Saturday Night Fish Fry, and okay, that's a Lindy Hop artist, right? No, this is not just something that's quite that particular. Like we said, these are playing for all manner of dancers. Listen to all of it, and you will find incredibly rich songs, not just for doing swing outs too, not just for doing jitterbug, but for blues songs. Louis Jordan's the first guy we're going to talk about here. He started with Chick Webb, with Chick Webb's band. Whereas Chick was, he had spinal problems. He was effectively disabled. Hell of a drummer, but the guy wasn't getting out and doing backflips on stage to get everyone's attention. Louis was. There were actually like possible like discussions on whether or not it was Louis leading the band or Chick Webb, or at least the perception thereof, because Louis was the guy out there doing vocals for the band and putting himself out there. And Chick eventually fired him for trying to recruit Ella Fitzgerald and other people out of his band to go form his own. The song we're going to play for you is Blue Light Boogie.
They did the boogie real slow with the blue lights way down low. They did the boogie real slow with the blue lights way down low.
So what you take away from this, listening to the instrumentation and listening to the style of this, is there's still that very strong feeling of swing jazz. And one of the things that I've often said, and it's less true today than it maybe was a few years ago, but Lindy Hoppers, swing dancers, actually would rather dance to blues than to swing. Most swing music is from, swing. The swing era in terms of swing music was the 30s. A lot of that stuff is really minor, and it's not really the easiest to dance to. But the jump blues was dance music, very specifically dance music. And these guys, when they were up on stage, if people were not dancing, they were not doing their jobs. They wouldn't get hired back. This is strictly dance music. And so we hear, and with jump blues, it almost is more of a tempo thing, whether you feel swing out or whether you feel blues dance.
Right. And you'll really probably be able to do either to most of the songs. Blue Light Boogie, maybe not, But some of his other stuff, absolutely. And there's great songs for any style of dancer. He's got some great Latin numbers I've heard. They're really fun. And they're hilarious. Louis Jordan is one of the artists that you should always listen to all the words of the songs. I mean, a man's best friend is a bed. I mean, you've got... listen to the words of Saturday Night Fish Fry. Listen to the words to just... Even Blue Light Boogie is amazing. The guy, as much as he was a musician, the guy was an entertainer.
Absolutely. Your guys like Cab Calloway, also not a swing artist. Cab Calloway was a rhythm and blues artist. And I say rhythm and blues, and we'll talk about that in a moment. We want to play some more music first. Next up, we want to talk about Wynonie Harris. If you're a swing dancer, you've heard his songs at your swing dance. I mean, guaranteed. But this guy was a character. He had, by the age of 20, 3 children with 3 different women. Right.
Busy.
And he started actually as a dancer. His entertainment career started in the 1930s. He formed a dance team in Omaha, Nebraska. And so we're talking, this guy didn't even start as a singer. Later on, he did start singing. But the thing was, this was the Great Depression. This was 1935. He got his big break in LA. They couldn't record him because there was no shellac to make the vinyl to cut the records. So almost like today, he made his career in front of audiences. And to do that, you absolutely have to be more of an entertainer and a performer than necessarily a great singer. So what you have is Wynonie was a shouter. So much more spoken and shouted than necessarily sung melodically.
Yeah, Louis Jordan is pretty smooth in most of what you'd hear from a lot of artists. There's going to be other guys that we could talk about. I mean, Big Joe Turner, shouter. I mean, Jimmy Witherspoon, shouter. Joe Williams. Well, okay, maybe not Joe Williams, but you get the idea. Jimmy Rushing, shouter.
Absolutely.
I mean,
so Wynonie, definitely a shouter. He eventually went on and got picked up by Lucky Millender's band in the 40s. But this is what we're talking about with Wynonie Harris. This is a song called Young Man's Blues, and take a listen to this.
Well, I want to tell you, young men, something. Yes, if you keep it to yourself. Gonna tell all you young men something. Boys, you got to keep it to yourself. Well, I'm gonna give you a little secret. Please don't tell nobody else.
Again, that's a smaller band put together to perform. I mean, perhaps for smaller audiences than you'd get in a gigantic ballroom, but they can play all over. This is coming from a very specific movement. This is after World War II. You're seeing more of a push for things like civil rights in the country. You're starting to see that the gravitation towards what you eventually get in the early 60s, and the continued migration of African Americans from basically the fields and smaller communities into the cities made it more viable for small clubs within urban areas to exist. Again, kind of the fading away a little bit of the jukes and the honky tonks, and moving on towards this more urban environment, and the crowd shifting. It's a significant shift in American culture.
Right. It's not just the movement of people, but it's also the movement of the culture and the desire to appear less rural as the African Americans and even the white folks moved into the cities. The cities had this pull that you don't want to be a yokel. So the desire is to become more urbane.
Right. It's very much about wanting to be just, I guess, a bit more civilized, whatever you want to describe the move into the city. It's we'll talk a little bit more about how this shift continues, but we're going to again continue with more music here. The next artist that I want to talk about is Buddy Johnson. Mm-hmm. Buddy Johnson performed with his sister Ella Johnson fairly significantly. He started off in New York, performing around New York. For me, the hilarious part of this is that through their music, Buddy's songs were very much about some really kind of sketchy topics, ranging from what you would almost just call abuse now to infidelity. But if you listen to the words of these songs, they're absolutely hilarious. Songs like Talking About Another Man's Wife. That's still one of the best titles that I can think of, in just because it's really funny. But the song we're going to play is called Hittin' on Me. It's almost really disturbing to hear Ella sing some of these songs. Listen to this first.
I don't want no man who always hitting on me. Don't want no man who always hitting on me. The last man that hit me has been dead since 43.
All right, listen to this for just a second. Shut your big mouth, girl. A pretty girl, a Cadillac, and some money. My old man, and gotta go upside your head. These are all songs that Buddy and Ella Johnson did.
My old man is straight up about a guy who has got a girl and then another girl and possibly another girl. So, definitely we're talking infidelity. If not, God knows what.
Yeah, it's just the fact that this is a brother-sister tandem performing these songs. It's like there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that. I can't. I don't even know how I'm going to put my finger on it. I couldn't put a word to it, but it ain't right. So, but again, you kind of notice that. There's still a little bit of if you want to think about the way you break down dance, it's got kind of a horizontal movement to it. It'll still push you forward, still push you back. If you wanted to do something like a swing out, you could do that, and there's still a natural feel to it in the music, and that's still the product of its evolution out of boogie woogie and that kind of mishmash between it and big band, and I guess Lindy Hop music, whatever you want to call it at that point.
Right. And so, Lindy Hop music, we end up getting into the issue of musical nomenclature. And that's fundamentally always been kind of at the heart of a lot of discussions. What is swing music? What is blues? What is jump blues? What is rhythm and blues? In this case, rhythm and blues at this time period is the same thing as jump blues. Rhythm and blues is a marketing name for quote unquote race music. As the civil rights movement moved along, race music, that term became politically incorrect. So the record labels chose rhythm and blues. What you see is that rhythm and blues actually encompasses a large amount of African American based music, starting with jump blues and then moving on to soul and then funk, and then, more ballady stuff as you get towards the 70s and the 80s. Jump at that time, and then, the early R&B moves on to become rock and roll. So what you see is an artist like Paul Williams, whose most famous song is The Hucklebuck, and it was covered by, quite a few people. This song sold 500,000 copies, and this is 1949, I believe. So 500,000 copies of a record. So we're talking like, vinyl in 1949. Paul Williams was the originator of the honkin' sax solo. So, we're talking, this isn't coming out to sit on the lawn and just relax. This is These are riotous affairs. The cops are shutting this down. This is the joint, and this is the joint jumping. So we're going to play the song, and then we'll kind of wrap up what's going on. But this is Paul Williams with the Hucklebuck.
All right, you can see there some of the transitions away from just the big, huge arrangements to just a few horns, drummer, vocalist at that point. Well, not on that song. But it's funny that we have this song in 1949, and we have credits just 2 years later of Paul Williams being the guy performing what was called the first rock and roll show. Alan Freed labeled it as such when he billed it, and Paul Williams performed. I mean, this is the move from jazz and blues, I guess, from the teens up to the 20s, and the move from big band to jump blues. And then you see the split again, but it's in this case, instead of it being a coalition or the fusion of music, you start to see that divergence. You start to see the divergence into rock and roll and blues, and then the different styles within blues. I mean, you've got guys who at the same time as they're being pushed towards rock and roll. I mean, Louis Jordan tried to put out a rock and roll album. It was much later in his career. He tried to kind of follow in him. He wasn't really able to succeed. If you find the album, I actually own it, and you can listen to the differences between the different songs that he performed, and the versions on the later production, the rock, are very much almost a much more violent affair than the earlier jump numbers.
So let's kind of bring this back towards dancing. We don't really hear a huge amount of jump blues at dances, and a lot of it that you do hear has been kind of at the Lindy Hop and the swing dance. There is a place for this in blues dance.
Absolutely.
But there's a trick to it. You've got to be careful. A lot of jump can sound very, very similar to other jump. If you listen to Wynonie Harris, there are 3 or 4 dozen Wynonie Harris songs that all sound exactly the same.
And the same with Louis Jordan.
And, even Harlem Hamfats, has a lot of they make their money playing songs that sound like them. You've got to be careful with this, because just with that same danger that you get with modern Chicago and Texas guitar blues, where you end up with an hour of music that sounds like one long song, with the jump, you can get into exactly the same situation. So you've got to be wary about including too much jump all at once, unless you're, really picking diverse sides of jump blues.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and Keith's dead right there. I mean, as a DJ, you have to pick your spots with this. And it's when I talk about being a DJ and working to provide music to the dance floor, one of the things I try to talk to people about is being versatile. If you're going to show up to a blues venue with 2 hours of jump blues music, have you really gone through the trouble of picking, 30, 40 tracks for the night? Or did you just pick the same one and repeat it over and over again? Because it might not sound all that different. It's really hard. And like you said, any of the styles of blues you pick, or swing, or whether it's big band or whatever, you can get really stagnant and just bore your dancers to death. I've done it. I get to the point where it's like, okay, now they're done, and then I have to move on to something else, whether I really want to or not, because I have hypnotized my dancers.
The question that you really have to ask is, how do you want to dance, or how do you want your audience to dance to the music that is being played? With jump, you've got to be careful, what you're evoking with the music. Do you want people to still be blues dancing? Do you want them to be, Lindy hopping? As you move more into the later R&B, we didn't actually get far enough to start touching on like Ruth Brown. The structure of jump blues and rhythm and blues changes to have less of the 12-bar structure and a more linear chorus verse structure. And you end up with a different style of movement that lends itself more towards Carolina Shag. What do you want to see your dancers doing? And is that what you're getting when you play the song? As you're listening to this music as an accent or even as a main feature of your set, what are you trying to accomplish when you play it?
Yeah. At the same time as we're saying, be cautious. Don't be afraid to play these songs. I mean, these artists are fantastic. The music is it's not just rich and strong. It's funny.
It's dance music.
It's dance music, and it's funny. And it's fun. There's a place to be entrenched in wanting to create a solid aesthetic and make your fantastic dancers do whatever it is that you're pushing them towards. And sometimes you really want to watch a half dozen people laugh when they catch what they're dancing to. I was actually dancing with somebody recently, and I laughed in the middle of a song. And she's like, "What are you laughing at?" I ended up having to explain what a jelly roll was to a nice girl because I couldn't really avoid it at the time. And I felt really bad about that. But
we're not going to explain it to you now. So if you don't know either Urban Dictionary or Wikipedia,
ask your parents. That's fine.
Ask your grandparents. Come on, baby, let me buy you a house. So that from the very, very end of a Kev Mo tune, which is there's a lot of verbal play in the songs. Hopefully there's a lot of play on your dance floor. Hopefully as a dancer, you're listening to the music and you're catching those twists because that they're not talking, the first 5 bars of the song, what's actually going on. There's always a twist. Now, personally, I'll sit here and talk about rhythm and blues for, the next 6 or 7 hours, but the show tends to run long anyway. So we're going to stop here for now. If you want to know more about rhythm and blues and jump blues and really kind of where it fits with blues dancing more so than necessarily Lindy Hop, please write in and let us know so that we can focus in that area. Otherwise, we're going to go on in a different direction and leave it. We're going to stop here for now and we're going to start wrapping the show up.
Which means it's time for listener feedback. Woohoo! Woohoo! Yay! Our first little piece of feedback here is from Tim Jones in Canberra. I'm not Australian enough to say that, but it's definitely Australia. So here we go from Tim. Hi guys. The first 2 episodes of the show have been great. I especially like the variety of the music you play, and it's awesome to hear more about the artists as you play them. I thought I'd share some local talent we have here in Canberra, Australia. Here's a track from a local blues guy named Jono Zilber. Jono?
Yeah.
Okay, Jono. Cool.
Jacko?
Really? Jacko?
No.
Jono. We got to know him by frequenting the weekly blues night at a local pub, and since then we've had him and his band come play for a couple of blues parties we put on. He and the other guys in the band are super nice people. I think getting to know your local musicians is always a good idea. The track is called Second Chances from the album Bigger, Better, Zilber. I really like the combination of sleepy space next to the sudden guitar rhythm. As it's got lots of space, it works really well if you're not playing it right next to a pumping Lindy room. First of all, thank you, Tim, for doing exactly the things that we're recommending. You're talking to the local guys and you're sharing them, which means that we get to share them with everyone else, which is awesome.
That's right. I think that it's pretty unlikely that I would have ever discovered Jono from Australia sitting here in Austin.
Yeah, I don't make it out there very much.
Y'all can hire us though and bring us to Australia. We would be happy to come and visit.
I'm down. But anyway, the links in the show notes, both to Jono's website. That's jonozilber.com. Go look in the show notes for the spelling, and the link to his music on iTunes. We'll go ahead and we'll play the song for you right now.
And we actually, thanks to Jono, have the rights to play the full track. So
thank you again.
So thank you, Jono. Thank you, Tim, for getting us access to this. And here is the track, Second Chances.
I went down to the river, Lord, I went right on in. Preacher said, forgive his child, forgive his child. Devil tell me not long ago, play that music and your soul be lost. Even your God can't save you now, can't save you now. If I could do it again, I remember this one last thing. Second chances belong to your enemies too, your enemies too. Second chances belong to your enemies too. Second chances.
I have to say, I really love the tone, just from the guitar in the piece. It's got a really great sound, and thank you very much, Tim and Jono, for letting us play it, because that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's just it's bare, it's strong, it just lays out right in front of you, and dancers should have a great time with that. I would just sit and listen to that. I might just like curl up in a fetal position in the corner and just kind of awesome. And okay, maybe not.
Yeah. So let's continue on with our all international feedback this month. Our next piece of feedback is from Henrik Eriksson from Uppsala, Sweden. Henrik runs a blog called Swing Jazz Blues Dance to the Music. And we'll put a link to his blog in the show notes. Please go check it out. It's got a lot of really, really great stuff. He does tend to focus more on the jazz side, but I will let him say that. Henrik writes in, he says, I've been listening to your podcast and I really like it. In my blog, I've been focusing mostly on swing and a little less on blues, so it's great to see someone focusing on blues. A question from an international point of view. I think it's mostly the US which has blues dance nights and blues dance events. In Sweden, we don't have a blues dance scene. The most blues we get is on blues nights on Tuesdays at Harang. Harang is a dance camp that runs through the month of July in Sweden. Could you tell a little bit about what kind of blues that is played on a typical blues night? Is it only slow blues, or do you have some up-tempo rhythm and blues and jump blues earlier in the evening? Well, Henrik, it's great that you write in this month since we did decide to do our jump blues feature. I have to say that it really depends on where you are and what DJs and live music you have. Our live music, when we bring in blues bands, does tend to be more up-tempo, and it can be up-tempo in the 160, 170, 180, 200 beat per minute range. So we do commonly say that blues is not a tempo, blues is a genre. I try to play more up-tempo music earlier in the evening, including rhythm and blues. Some DJs will play only slow blues all the time. I guess it just depends on where you are. I try to have some variety in my sets.
Yeah, the tempo is only one aspect of what you deal with in blues. I mean, we talked about Bobby Rush earlier, and that there's a little section called soul blues, which has its own inflections on what blues is, and I mean, not just topic matter of the music, but in how it sounds. You'll hear people bounce from blues influenced by soul. You'll hear Delta blues, which you'll hear Delta blues, which pushes up to that higher threshold very easily. You'll hear great Keb Mo stuff that hits 160, 180.
Mm-hmm.
I mean some of the it's solid music, but it isn't overwhelmingly fast by any mean. I mean, blues does have a narrower region of tempo than say Lindy Hop does, where you'll hear people play music anywhere from 100 to 300 beats a minute, and say, yeah, we'll go for it. But there's still so much within it. I mean, there's so many aspects within the music that are much more important than tempo. It comes down to instrumentation. It comes down to style. We're going to talk more about that in a future show. Keith and I have been discussing that. I mean, just even within instruments, from harp to piano to guitar.
Right. And so ultimately what it does come down to, like I said earlier in the show, is what do you want to evoke from your dancers? If it's 9 o'clock in the evening, that to me is not the time to really get close with somebody. That's a time to jump. And so whether you're playing Woodside or whether you're playing Johnny Otis and you're playing more up tempo music, for me, whether you're blues or swing, is less tempo and more the instrumentation and the feel of the music.
Yeah, I mean, it brings up an important distinction between energy and tempo in music.
Right.
We routinely experience very fast songs that from my perspective, have very little energy. They're just flat, just dunk, 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 dunk. Whereas you can hear very slow songs that are just chock full of tension, and that tension comes out in the dance floor in the form of dancers just releasing all that tension in motion.
Yep. So, Henrik, I hope that answers your question. I think that may have not necessarily been as direct as you were.
We will keep talking about this for months.
Yeah. And it's really hard to explain without being able to show you what dancers are doing to the music. Henrik goes on to write, I have a considerable amount of blues in my music collection, but I don't get the chance to DJ it. Although I usually have some blues CDs that are played as background music in the cafe where we have our big monthly swing dance. My favorite blues right now is Wild Women Don't Get the Blues by the group Alive, with an exclamation point, from the album Always Alive, exclamation point, 1976 to 1986. Now, I had not heard of this group, so thank you for kind of turning our attention to it, Henrik. I really appreciate it. This group is a quintet out of the San Francisco area, and you're not going to find them on eMusic, but I did find their album back ordered on Amazon. Henrik was kind enough to provide the track, so we'll give you a little bit of a clip. Check out Wild Women Don't Get the Blues.
To spend even one lonely night at home alone, I go out, drink all the pills the streets all night. I can handle anybody that don't act right. I'm telling you that. Wow, women don't worry. Wow, women don't get the blues.
Oh, Henrik, thank you for sending us that. We are so happy to hear music that we're just not familiar with. That was pretty awesome stuff. Keep sending us music. Once again, info@confessingtheblues.com or 608-432-5837. That's 60 the blues. Keep letting us know about music we can play, or just give us more commentary. Let us know what we can do, what you want to hear, what questions you might have. If you think we're raving lunatics or outright genius. I'll accept being genius. I'm good with that.
So yeah, thanks, Henrik. I hope that at some point you do get to play some of the blues out of your library. There's some really great stuff in there that, I realize that in Sweden there's a push towards very classic jazz music for your dancing, but hopefully there's room there also for some blues. And with that, that's it for this month. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. It's been a great month. We did not have an interview this month. I had hoped that we were going to have time to fit it in for this month. But next month, I sat down while I was in New York and spoke with Miguel Weissman, who had written us some feedback last month. And we had an hour and 40 minutes of interview that I've got to get narrowed down. So coming up next month, we've got an interview with Miguel Weissman. We've got some more new music for you. We've got, I'm sure, some rambling of a blues style that yet to be determined. So if you have something you'd like to hear, again, send us an email.
Yeah, we'll ramble for you.
Absolutely.
On demand.
So thank you guys again so much for listening, and we will see you the middle of November.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next month.
You were a man for me, mama. I don't want nobody else.
So I do hope that answers your question, Henrik, although I think we were probably a little bit more oblique than you were oblique? I don't think that's
fine.
the word.
Yeah, oblique's fine.
Okay. Then what you were necessary.
I can get you a thesaurus if you need it.
Yeah, is that a dinosaur? The Thesaurus Rex.
This is the
king of thesauri.
Roar.